guys? I'm Kelly K, lactation fraud inspector.
And I am not Jazzy. I am Don G, your pocket door procurer. Should have got one that I could see would be helpful. Pocket door procurer. There you go.
Jazzy is, don't worry, Jazzy hasn't gone anywhere. Jazzy has been very sick. We've been hit so hard this year. Like, I mean, fortunately, she's safe. She's in LA, so she was affected by the fires, which, like, I mean, when the air quality's bad, if you get like the tiniest cold, it's just that much worse. But yeah, I've had back-to-back sinus infections. It's been just a rough winter.
Yeah. I think for a lot of people, it's just been like, a lot of people's holiday season was completely ruined with this not flu virus that's been, prevalent.
Yeah. Yeah. Mine was definitely a sinus infection because my sinus headaches were brutal. But yeah, Jazzy's out. She's feeling a lot better, but she said she still pretty much sounds like Wolfman Jack. So she will hopefully be better by Friday to join us for the after party, which it's not really an after party since we're doing it the day after, but whatever. It's an after party.
Yeah.
A lot of people are watching it that day because, they don't have time to watch it. It's on late at night.
So that's the problem when it drops at some random time. People are watching it. In the UK, I've seen a lot of people watching it before they go to work. So
yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, Dawn, I'm so happy to have you here. It's been a few months.
Yes, yeah. I'm glad to be the interim innie.
Yes, and Dawn's going to be joining us. Oh no, I just said that, didn't I? That you're going to be joining us for our after parties. Yeah. If you're not familiar with Dawn, she is my Walking Dead co-host. So you may, if you've watched any of our Walking Dead universe coverage, then you recognize her from that. If you haven't, go check it out. We covered The Ones Who Live, and we've been covering the Daryl spinoff, which I refuse to say the name of.
Right on.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a little salty right now. But yeah, we're happy to have another member of the Cyborg Queen media family on here, and it'll be great when I get the both of you together. It'll be awesome.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Anyway, welcome to The Severed Floor, a mysterious and important podcast where we deal with the uncertainty of the Apple TV Plus series Severance in a way that Keir would have wanted, together as a family. We also speak candidly about real-world issues like trauma and mental health as they relate to the show, because some things just desperately need to be normalized. And with that, we have kind of a new format here. If you're used to our other formats, I'm going to read just a quick recap. There will be timestamps, so you can skip past it if you don't want a refresher on what happened in this episode. And then we're going to go right into the discussion. So this episode is called Goodbye, Mrs. Selvig. And this picks up right from where the season 1 finale left off, but it's all from the Audi point of view. And which was super cool. I was hoping they would reveal a little bit more than they did.
But it is different.
Yeah. Okay. So out of all the Audis, Mark comes to in the safest surroundings, the cozy confines of his sister Devon's home. Audi Mark snaps back to reality, his mind a whirlwind of confusion and sorrow. He clutches a photograph of his late wife, Gemma, with Innie Mark's words, a cry of, "She's alive," still echoing in his thoughts and on the faces of the gathered guests. After the party is dismissed, and we finally get rid of Rebecca, Mark, Devon, and Rickon discuss if Innie Mark's cry was a reference to his missing niece, who they were afraid was kidnapped by Miss Cobell, not his beloved Gemma. Audi Mark's skepticism pushes him to believe he must have been talking about the baby. He is absolutely certain Gemma is dead. Devon, less trusting of Lumen, pushes Mark to search for answers, but Mark's denial is deep, and the attention brought back to Gemma's death leaves him deeply angered. Helena, who we recently learned is a member of the Egan dynasty, finds herself in a pickle after her Innie's dramatic outbursts at the gala. Meaning to introduce herself as both a member of the Egan family and a proud Severed employee, she is instead shanghaied by her Innie, Helly R., who uses the platform to announce that Severed employees are trapped, tortured, and miserable in their conditions before she was tackled by security. Helena comes back to her body in time to have a confrontation with her father, Jay Megan, and Mr. Drummond, who appears to be some type of lumen enforcer a la Mr. Grainer, only this time with a frolic tattoo. Jame isn't pleased, his face stormy with disapproval. He calls Helena a fetid moppet, despite the terrifying situation. Helena is unshakably calm, her demeanor a slight hint to just how much power this future CEO holds. Britt Lauer delivers an Emmy-worthy acting performance that quite honestly gave us chills. In a bid to salvage her reputation, Helena crafts an apology video, blaming her actions on a cocktail of alcohol and the use of a non-lumen manufactured prescription cream for an arm rash. Helena gives a performance worthy of an Emmy in her apology video, but beneath the surface, it seems that she's caught between her family's expectations and her own desires and agenda. Later on, she reviews security camera footage of Annie Helly in her last moments before the Macrodat uprising, and seems a bit rattled when she observes Helly kissing Mark. She replays the footage several times. Is she jealous? Excited? Possibly both? Something is definitely going on here, but as to what, we can only speculate. We also learn that Lumen has a secretive project named Cold Harbor, and apparently they cannot complete it without Mark. Enter Mr. Milchick, quickly climbing that ladder of Lumen Industries with his masterful puppeteer work. He gets into his very suave biking outfit and proceeds to ride his unspeakably cool motorcycle to visit Audi Dillon and Irving, delivering the news of their termination with his trademark smile that is half terrifying, half charming, all unsettling. He also pays a visit to Mark, still with Devin and Rickon, but there's a twist, a gift basket and a tempting 20% pay raise to lure him back. Milchick's words are honeyed, reminding Mark of his devastating loss of Gemma being the reason he agreed to Severance in the first place, and suggesting Mark's Innie has found love and solace on the Severed floor. His ability to manipulate is as artful as it is sadistic. Devin angrily mentions Cobell disguising herself as a lactation consultant. Milchick issues this opportunity to throw Cobell under the bus, blaming her abuses for driving Innie Mark to escape. He praises Innie Mark's bravery and claims it would be a shame to punish it within existence. It seems Milchick and Lumen will stop at nothing to lure Mark back to working on the mysterious Cold Harbor project. Ms. Cobell, or Cobelvig, as Rickon has renamed her, is offered a promotion in a new expanded role that is obviously a promotion in name only. She is still removed from her position as director of the Severed floor. She yearns for her old stomping grounds on the Severed floor and former level of power and control. Helena's manipulation tactics are mesmerizing while trying to convince Harmony of her value to Lumen, but Cobelvig sees through the tactic, responding with, "You don't value me, you fear me." Helena, towing the company line, reminds her that Lumen fears no one. In the episode's finale, Mark catches her leaving and confronts her about the invasion into his life. She mocks him for his willingness to return to Lumen. Their confrontation ends when Mark asks her directly if she knows anything about Gemma. Cobelvig exits in one of her typical terrifying demonic temper tantrums, her car tires screeching like a banshee as she flees into the night, leaving Mark with more questions than answers. Audi Dillon stumbles through an interview at a door manufacturing company called Great Doors. Awkward at first, it all seems to be going well once Dillon lets his natural charm shine through, until he lets it slip that he's severed. The interviewer's disdain for the severance procedure is palpable, making Dillon's awkwardness even more pronounced. It's a scene that paints a stark picture of the societal stigma attached to those who have undergone the procedure and provides a nice bit of world building as to how the world at large sees Lumen and Severance. Dillon compares the interviewer's refusal to hire him as discrimination, but the interviewer is unmoved. Afterward, while Dillon sulks in his car after his demeaning rejection, he gets a call from his wife, Gretchen, whose voice we clearly recognized as our beloved Merritt Weaver. She tries to comfort him, but he brushes her off, asking her if they need more baby wipies before driving home. The reveal that Dillon has a newborn must explain why any Dillon hears a baby crying whenever he's tossed into the break room. Later in the episode, he is visited once again by Motorcycle Milchick, this time offering him his job back along with a fruit basket. Irving, ever the enigma, steps into a phone booth. His call, like everything else with his character, shrouded in mystery. We're unable to hear either end of the conversation very well as he speaks, but he does say that my innie got the message. A car pulls up while he's on the phone, and it's revealed to be Bert G, watching with a tearful expression that could launch 1,000 ships of intrigue. This moment hints at layers of Irving's life that remain hidden. He, too, meets with motorcycle Milchick and is offered his job at Lumenbach. We find out that Innie Mark's plea to the board is being heeded, and they are giving him all of his requests, all of his team back, including Heliar. For some secret reason, he is deeply important to Lumen. The episode crescendos with Outie Mark, torn between denial and the glimmer of hope that Gemma might still be out there. His confrontation with Cobel, where he demands the truth, is charged with emotion. Cobel's reaction, a mix of guilt and evasion, leaves Mark with a heart full of questions and a mind racing toward the truth. This episode dives deep into the murky waters of identity, memory, and manipulation. Each character's journey is indicative of Lumen's control, a narrative of personal struggle against corporate machinations and their own internal conflicts. Goodbye, Mrs. Selvig is a masterclass in setting up mysteries and character arcs. Every twist and turn leaves you more entangled in the web of Lumen's secrets. The episode promises a future filled with revelations as each character navigates their own path through the labyrinth of their own minds and the corporate maze of Lumen Industries. So this was a really great episode, I thought.
Yeah. It's a very, an early episode in a season kind of episode, setting up a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And lots of questions and very little answers.
Yes, exactly. Like, what is up with the pineapples?
That's my favorite line. Did it include a pineapple?
Yes. Is this like a hint to like some kind of swingers thing going on?
Yes. Yeah, I forgot about that. Pineapples, yes.
I couldn't help but notice that. I think my favorite parts of this episode, my favorite storylines of this episode, I think were Dylan's Audi storyline. I absolutely loved. I also thought it was a really great episode for Devin.
Yeah.
And holy shit. Like, I always thought Britt Lauer was great, but she was amazing in this episode. I mean, she was unrecognizable.
Yeah. She was so still and cold and detached, whereas the Helly we're used to is a firecracker. She's always feeling and doing and something. And this was all restrained and all inside. So much so that, when she's watching the kiss on the CCTV camera, all we see of her is her eye moving. That's all that Helena can do. She can't go, oh my God, she just has to, it's just the eyes that give it away.
So let me ask you, what did you make of that, of her watching Helly and Mark kiss?
I think, they sort of hinted at it in the little post-episode thing that was on Apple, the sort of behind-the-scenes thing, that she is not someone who's experienced love maybe at all. Romantic love anyway. And to see a part of her, to see herself experiencing something like that, so spontaneous, so thrilling, and something that's completely alien to her, and for her to watch it and see herself, how weird must that be? I think it's something that's made her look at herself in a completely different way.
That's a really interesting interpretation. See, I did not. Okay, I don't know why, but like every time I watch the show, I see the like stay tuned, like stick around after the credits. I've never seen. Can
I just say it's really hard to get to watch it because it keeps automatically going off into the next thing, and I'm like, no, go back to it. I have to do it 3 times to get it to stay on.
So maybe I have to turn it. Maybe I have to turn off autoplay or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try doing that because I haven't seen any previews.
Yeah.
It goes right into Silo every time.
Yeah.
I don't even watch Silo, but it goes right into Silo.
Mine's is Ted Lasso. It keeps going into Ted Lasso. I'm like, no, stop it.
Yeah, I do watch Servant. It never goes into Servant. I don't know
No.
why, but well, I did watch Servant. It's not on anymore. But yeah, no, that's a really cool interpretation. Now I'm really curious. I have to try to dig up this preview for next week's episode.
I mean, I had thought, oh, it must be weird to watch yourself kissing someone and you'd be like, oh, what's going on there? But it was on that they sort of suggested that Helena has never experienced that kind of thing. And I thought, oh yeah, and I hadn't really thought of that because she's the daughter of possibly the most powerful man in the country and her whole life is obviously very controlled and part of Lumen. I can imagine that she's not having relationships freely, at least, and everything in her life will be controlled by her father or controlled by the company, and maybe that includes romantic relationships.
Yeah, that I love that. I think that's so fascinating. See, the way that I interpreted it, which is probably way off. My theories on this show are just kind of out there, but some of them are looking like they might come to fruition. So, what I got from that is that I felt like Jazzy and I both felt like she wasn't happy seeing that. That it distressed her, and the reason that I think Jazzy and I have slightly different opinions of this, but my theory is that she was disappointed because they want a huge news story to come from Lumen reuniting Mark with his dead wife. I think I have a feeling that's what they're working up to.
Yeah, I get you. Yes.
Yeah. And it's going to be a huge deal, and Lumen is going to basically, be able to provide immortality to people and look at this guy who was just completely miserable because his wife died, and now he's with his wife, but they're, who knows if they would let him stay.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and for the longest time, I really felt like she was dead, and I thought Miss Casey was a clone. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think she's a clone.
Yeah.
But then I'm not entirely convinced of that since the discussion with David in this episode. There's a couple of things that I'm not sure of, because he just said, identified the body. And if you watch the new titles, of which there's so many little new clues in that, in one of the scenes where there's like patches of ice, there's a car half in ice. So I'm assuming that's the car crash that killed Gemma. But then when he says about to David, oh, if the same thing happened to Rickon and their body burned, now I'm assuming that means cremation, but it could also mean that the body burned before he identified it.
Yeah.
So it could, it might not have been her. But the other choice is, if it was ice, then did they cryogenically freeze Gemma? And that's who they've woken up. So I'm like, maybe it's Gemma, maybe it's a clone. And obviously the whole goats thing makes you think cloning. So I'm like, I'm really in two minds. I'm not sure. I definitely think a new Gemma is their goal, but whether it's in the old body or whether it's a completely new body, I don't know.
Yeah. There are also a couple of things. First of all, with the car in the lake.
Yeah.
It looks exactly like Cobelvig's car.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I hadn't noticed that.
Yeah. But I mean, the cars are weird in this show.
Yeah. Very sort of 80s looking, 90s sort of.
Yeah. It's very weird.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if the fact that it looks exactly like Cobelvig's car means that much.
Yeah.
But also when Mark was working on the Cold Harbor file
Mhm.
and they showed the picture of her and with all that data.
Yeah.
Somebody on the subreddit mentioned that I guess they work in the medical industry, and they said that some of the numbers there um, it was basically data used for comatose patients.
Ah. Aha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that could also be they could also be using that for clones, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's a
but
tricky one.
yeah, definitely. Um, Let me ask you, what did you think of the scene in the diner with Devin and Mark?
I, I think as you said, in the start there, you were saying what a good episode it was for Devon. I get the feeling like Devon is going to be the hero of the season. Like,
Yeah.
she's the one that's going to start investigating things on her own. And I'm not sure what's made her think so much that it's Gemma, whether she's always had a suspicion or something, or what is it that flipped when she spoke to any Mark? What has changed in her that she's so not convinced, but she certainly it's got under her skin the idea that Gemma's still alive. And that I thought that was an interesting exchange where she said to Mark, she was my family too, and I cared about her, and you're acting like I don't. And he was like, yeah, but if that happened to Rick, and I would be sad, but I wouldn't be devastated. And I'm wondering if that's leading someplace but I don't know where. But I mean, if in the first season, because she had all that interaction with the senator's wife,
Yeah.
and then kind of nothing's happened since then, I'm wondering if it's going to pick up that we see Devon in the outside world starting to investigate things more.
Yeah, that might be that could be. I would love that because I think Jen Tolick is great. I really like her
Yeah.
on the show. I'd love to see her in a bigger role. I really enjoy her character and her acting a lot. Um, Now, just while we're on the topic of pineapples, and we're recording a Lumen deep dive as soon as Jazzy's feeling better. So I won't, we're gonna cover it in there, but I just want to get your opinion on this. So they've got the new perks.
Yeah.
And bobbing for pineapples was one. Now, did you I was rewatching the trailer and teasers and everything, and I
Yeah.
totally forgot that there was a shot in there of of uh of Helly being like having her face shoved underwater.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah. So
So that's likely a bobbing for pineapples.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Um
What
I
is the
also I
what is
have
the
a feeling.
significance of pineapples?
I know. I know. I don't quite understand it. But I have a feeling though, like we've heard we've heard Helly and Dylan talk about what they've heard while
Yeah.
in the break room, but we've never heard them talk about what's going on in there other than the apology.
Hmm.
And we know there's some kind of physical punishment because Mark's hand
Yeah.
was all messed up. Um, and we see they advertise bobbing for pineapples with their wrists bound. Um,
Yes.
and we see Helly's in one of the teasers, we see Helly's face being shoved underwater. Like she's not having fun.
No.
She's so it makes me wonder, there's no way that they can do these kinds of things to them and keep them from causing trouble if they can remember them.
Yeah.
So I think any kind of like physical punishment or anything, I'm wondering if they erase their memories of that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. And I'm thinking as well is how do they reach a limit where it doesn't affect the outie's life? You know how when
Yeah.
Mark got the little gift card, your innie had an accident, whatever. But if that was happening regularly, you would become suspicious.
Yeah.
And you know, there must be some way that they can torture them without it having a lasting impact on their outie.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, well, you know, I was just trying to think about pineapple. And it's a really weird thing, but you know that pineapple has that enzyme that kind of eats your skin. That's why it makes your mouth tingle.
Oh,
And
okay.
I'm wondering if there's some connection to that it destroys human tissue. I don't
Huh.
know.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I also saw dragon fruit in the gift baskets, but yeah, I don't know why pineapples keep coming up.
No.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
Um, I'm I'm actually a little surprised that Mark and that Mark was so like dismissive of the idea that she's alive could be referring to Gemma.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Um,
I think it's probably a self-protection thing that
yeah,
he doesn't want to have hope. Hope
right.
when, you know, after so much grief, processing grief for 2 years, the idea that you would then get your hopes up at all in any way is so destructive. Because what if it turns out she's not, or even if she was, but he somehow could never get to her, how painful that would be when you're reaching a point where you're starting to process this grief. Um, and so I think it's fear as well. You know, I don't even want to contemplate that.
Yeah. It also prevents him from moving on in any kind of way.
Yeah, yeah,
Because he's, he's still he's basically obsessing over her at that point.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's interesting though that Devin is that curious.
yeah.
But I'm glad somebody is though.
Yes.
I'm really glad that somebody is. Um, I'm confused as hell about I'm even more confused than I was last season about Cobelvig,
Yeah.
about what her deal is.
No, exactly. I was going to ask you. I was going to be like, what do you think her deal is? But
I'm so confused.
why is she? Why? I mean, I think there's a kernel of truth in what Milchick was saying, that she's obsessed with Mark, and you know, I think there is an element of that she is emotionally invested in whatever they are doing with Mark in a way that she shouldn't be, and that's why they moved her on. But I don't know why.
Yeah. I've kind of always felt like she was obsessing over Mark because I think that Lumen has her mother's body or is trying to clone her mother if it's about cloning and not resurrecting.
Yeah.
Um, and I think she's using Mark for her own experiment because she wants to reunite with her mother.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I get you.
But it's so like she really seems though like she's two I mean, she seems like she's two completely different
Yeah.
people. I mean, like to the extreme.
Yeah.
And I mean, Cobell is nothing like Mrs. Selvig.
No.
But what's so fascinating is Mrs. Selvig has this shop that she keeps referring to,
Yeah.
where they sell, they sell wraps and salves and like it sounds very like old school apothecary,
Yes. Yeah.
and that sounds a lot like an old school Lumen run shop. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. Yes.
Because they started out with topical salves.
Yeah.
Um, and it just so like I don't know. I'm just so confused. I'm wondering if her mother, do you think that maybe she could possibly be distant Egan family member?
Well, I wondered that if she was like the black sheep branch, you know, and so
Yeah.
they tolerate her, but when push comes to shove, shove happens. You know, that she's
Yeah.
like a cousin or something. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that would make sense. That they feel they have to keep her around, and that's why they give her this rubbish new position, which is just a name to keep her quiet, basically.
Yeah.
But she's not actually. But the thing was, she is again on the after thing. Patricia Arquette said that she's a genius. Cobell is a genius, and that's why it frustrates her because everybody else is not as competent as she is.
Yeah.
Which makes sense that she thinks she should be in Helena's position running the place, and she isn't. And I mean, she's right. She did more to uncover what happened, than anybody. Without her, they wouldn't have known as much as was going on, if at all.
Yeah.
They might have got away with it if it wasn't for that pesky Mrs. Cobell. So she's right. They don't value her, she said, and they don't because another employer would have been so grateful for what she did, but they just want to keep pushing her aside. So what is it that she's making them doing that they don't want to look at, they don't want to think about, that they
Yeah.
want to keep her in a cupboard kind of thing?
And the other thing that's really mysterious to me is that she actually seems to, when she's in the role of Mrs. Selvig, seems to actually legitimately care about Mark.
Yeah. Yes. That's what I was that. Yeah. That's what I'm meaning. She's really emotionally involved.
Yeah.
And I think even with, Devon and the baby, I think that was genuine.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just because of her own lack of family, and maybe she is something she excuse me, she wishes she had or she'd lost, maybe that she perhaps had something like that and Lumen took it away. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, like I for the longest time I thought that maybe she was severed in a different kind of way.
Mm.
And it would explain why Mrs. Selvig seems like she's out of the 1800s or something. But I mean, and the other, there are all these other weird things about her. Like she mentioned when she was talking to Devin about seeing Gabby in the park and not recognizing her, and she said, "Well, I wouldn't recognize Cary Grant if I had just given birth." And it's just such a weird person to bring up. I mean,
Yeah. But then it's like Helena R's dad calling her a fetid moppet.
yeah,
All the language is really odd. It's just a bit. It's like AI language. It's like what an AI thinks a human would say.
We had a theory that Rickon's friend Patton might actually be an Egan just because of how he talks.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, it's very strange. Now, okay, I'm throwing another one of my crazy wackadoodle theories at you here. So I've had a theory for a while that, like, I think basically what they're trying to do is, I think they're trying to achieve immortality. And either whether that's through, like, whether they're preserving bodies or not, or just making clones. I think the severance procedure was all about having your consciousness in digital form.
Yeah.
So you can, when your body gives out, you can get a new one. And I feel like their plan is to bring all of the Egan CEOs back.
Ah, yeah.
And I'm really interested in Ambrose.
Okay.
Because the only mention that we've had of Ambrose, we've only heard one person mention Ambrose, and that's Irving. And all we know about Ambrose Egan was he was kind of the black sheep of the Egan family.
Yeah.
And it makes me think that I almost wonder if Ambrose Egan exists in a character that we already know.
Ah, okay. Okay. Do you think it's Irving?
I think it could be Irving or Rickon.
Okay, yes, Rickon. Yeah, Rickon makes more sense because of the book he's written.
Yeah.
Because of that it ends up in. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, that might. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but that would make sense. And that he's trying to influence things in Lumen in a subconscious way. He's not aware, maybe, that he is Ambrose, if you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that Rickon comes from money.
Yeah.
But he disowned his family and walked away from it all.
Yeah.
Which is what makes me kind of suspect him as. But there's also Irving, who there's just the fact that he's the only one who brought up Ambrose, and
yeah,
so that could be the writers leaving a clue or something. But God, Irving is so mysterious.
Yeah. Like, why did we see all that stuff in the trunk about his dad being in the Navy? That, now obviously there's a reason for that, but what?
Yeah.
What's going to be the importance of that? And the fact that when we came back to Mark, it was in the exact minute, and Haley, it was just after, moments after. And when we came back to Irving, he was already home. So we have no idea what happened at Bert's house. We don't know what Bert knows, what Irving knows, what Irving's outie knows, what Bert, if Bert is aware of his Innie's life, and if Bert told Irving that, he would obviously, I think he would answer the door, because there's a man beating on your door saying your name, you're going to answer it. And it's a question of how many seconds did he have before Irving went. And I think he was phoning Bert in the phone booth. I think that's why he said, the line he said was, "Okay, you're not picking up, I get it, but I want you to know my Innie got the message." So potentially that would mean Bert had said, "Leave me alone, your Innie's obsessed with me," or something like that, and go home. But that was all a lie, because we see Bert crying and watching him.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. That you said he's cheerful. I think he's crying, but I doubted myself, because I heard other people say, it looked ominous, and he was there, or it was just nothing. It was, a blank stare. But I thought, no, there's tears on his face.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it looked like to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jazzy was thinking that he might have actually been talking to Ragavi.
Okay, yeah.
And that, she wasn't picking up because she hasn't been answering her phone.
Yeah.
Like, she was missing at the end of season 1. Nobody could get in touch with her. But I'm not entirely sure where, who I think he's talking to. But what message do you think he was talking about?
I think if it's Bert that he's phoning, that no, yeah, that it was a pretend message that Bert was basically saying, leave me alone. And so he was saying, yeah, my innie got the message to leave you alone. But maybe it's something much deeper than that. And it's a message to do something. You know, that's my favorite scene in the first episode was the one between Irving and Dylan in the hallway.
Oh yeah.
And that maybe there is something else that he is instructing his innie to do down there, and to stick around and do it. You know, maybe he needs to uncover something or find something, perhaps in Bert's in Bert's segment, his department. I don't know. I think there's so many things it could be. What do you think?
Well, you know, talking to you now is changing my mind. Because like I thought he was referring to, so you know, we see him like listening to Motorhead and staying up all night drinking coffee and painting that what looks like the testing floor.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought he was referring to. I thought he was trying to, like, he wanted his innie to fall asleep at work.
All right.
And that maybe some of that would bleed into the innie's consciousness.
Wow.
So he would start, like, suspecting things and want to investigate.
Yeah.
But now from what you're saying, now I'm thinking you could be onto something, because like, my innie got the, you know, you're not picking up, I get it. My innie got the message. You know, the whole episode, the whole first episode was about, his storyline was about him being upset that Bert is with somebody in real life, in the outside world. So, you know, that could just be the message that, like, they can't be together.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited for this upcoming episode, because I've had this theory that we're actually going to be seeing Audie Irving in the next episode in the MDR department.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I you know, and I wrote a review of this episode, and I was saying, could that be what's going on? Like, you know, I thought that's a possibility as well. It's a possibility with all of them, I think.
Yeah.
But because Irving seemed most aware of what happened, whereas, you know, in Mark's circumstance, he had Devon and Rickon to tell him exactly what Innie Mark had said. And Helena, it was all recorded, so she knows exactly what Innie Helena said. But Irving didn't have any way of knowing what his Innie experienced, yet he seemed very aware of it.
Yeah.
And that makes me really suspicious that he remembers what happened or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, because, you know, Jazzy and I were wondering, we had assumed that when we saw Bert and Irving meet for the first time, that was not the first time they had met.
No.
They had already had a relationship. That's what we had already assumed. And they've been reset, because those two, it was like immediate infatuation, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it just, they both seem to fall too hard and too fast.
Yeah. That's my assumption too, that they've been reset numerous times.
Yeah.
And they just keep falling in love.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's possible that, you know, maybe Bert is married and he was cheating on his husband with Irving.
Yeah.
So that's possible. But yeah, I think that, so my theory is that, like, Irving was so set on leaving. And I think he could have been genuine and just wanting to leave because he didn't want his Innie to, you know, Innie Irving didn't want to have to deal with the pain, the heartbreak over Bert anymore. But so I don't know if he did this consciously or not, but I think that he may have used that as an opportunity to leave and then come back as Audi Irv.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Or could it be that the opposite, that it's any Irving is outie Irving, and
yeah,
that's
that's what
why he can still remember. He still knows everything that happened on the severed floor, because he's not actually gone back to being outie Irving.
wait, so you're saying you think that, okay, you're saying you think Audi Irving is
Yeah.
possibly, ooh, wow. I could see that. I think there's something going on with him, and I don't know if it's just because he's trying to stay awake all night
Yeah.
and not sleep, because he obviously, it's obvious to me that he wants his innie to fall asleep at work.
Yeah. Yes.
Um, but I don't know if that's all there is to it, or Jazzy thinks that he might be in the process of reintegrating.
Right. Yes. That would. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't really know what's up with Irving, but I think we're going to see.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that, like his Audi being replaced by Zinni. But I think there's a good chance that we may see one of them at some point replaced by the other.
Yeah. Yes.
And yeah, there's, I mean, I feel like there's stuff that any Irving hasn't talked to anybody about that
Mhm.
he's experienced.
Yeah.
Beyond just like seeing the paint.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
other times he may have fallen asleep at work, and maybe he saw other things.
Yeah.
But with the testing floor, why do you think he keeps painting the testing floor?
I was thinking it's because they've been reset, and I wonder if he's been reset at the testing floor. They've done, because he's been there so long.
Yeah.
They've done things to any Irving on the testing floor, and that's why he sees it, is because he remembers that. That's all he can remember. He can't remember anything about the previous versions except that he went to the testing floor.
Yeah.
That's
And
my assumption.
I think that maybe he and Bert have both been there to be reset.
Yeah.
As well. So that they like. I think there's a possibility that maybe Audi Bert is actually requesting this because,
because he's married.
Yeah, and he doesn't want to cheat on his husband anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, but I mean, when we saw him show up though to follow Irving around, like, he was definitely crying.
Yes. And so why is he crying? Why is he devastated? Why? What? Because I could imagine if any Irving had come to the door and told Bert some, a degree of what has happened. And then you're like, wow, what's that about? And I could imagine Bert being intrigued and following Irving. But his tears make me think he's aware of some emotional connection with Irving that he has, and that he has lost because he's an outie. But so that would mean either integration or something else going on, that he is aware of his feelings for Irving, and that makes him sad because he's got to pretend they don't exist.
One thing that I find really kind of interesting about the fact that he was following Irving is the conversation that they had in season 1, where Irving was talking to him about how he was worried about the fact that he kept falling asleep, and Bert was just like, "Oh, it just means you're a party animal up there," or whatever. And it just I couldn't help but think that Bert might have been following him to see what he's doing all night, meaning that he has some kind of knowledge
Yes. Yeah.
of the goings on the Innie floor.
Yeah.
And that he somehow has knowledge of this conversation that his Innie had with Irving's Innie.
Yeah.
But I mean, he could also just be following him because he was banging on his door. But
the tears are what make it must be more than simple curiosity. There's something tragic that is breaking his heart.
yeah.
Which suggests he is aware of what's going on the severed floor. And that's the most interesting thing, is that I think both Irving and Bert appear to have knowledge of their inner life to some degree, and the question is, how have they got that knowledge, and how much do they have?
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing that makes me kind of lean toward it being Ragabi or possibly somebody else that is associated with Ragabi or is possibly reintegrating, is that he used the phone booth.
Yeah.
So
he didn't
want a record of the call. So it tells me he's definitely doing something that he could get in huge trouble with from Lumen.
Yeah.
But so I don't know if I told you this or not, but I have this crazy Irving theory.
Okay.
That he was possibly that his outie, in addition to being asleep while his Innie was at Lumen all day, in addition to working at Lumen all day, I have a feeling that my theory is that he has also been working part-time as a Lumen appointed therapist.
Oh.
Basically tasked with finding good candidates for Severance, because it didn't just come out of nowhere. I swear to God, there are things that led me to come up with this crazy theory. In the very first episode, Devin asked Mark about his therapist with the mustache. So there was that, but then there's also the scene in season 1 where he was putting Gemma's picture back together. There was that voiceover of him talking about Gemma in the same manner that Miss Casey delivers facts to the innies on their outies. So it was very Lumen speak. And it made me feel like this was, and we've never heard a narration on the show, so I think he was talking to somebody. I don't think these were his thoughts. I think he was talking to somebody associated with Lumen.
Right. I get you. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Yeah. It never would have occurred to me. But I can yeah, that's interesting. Especially your therapist with a moustache. That is interesting.
Yeah.
And I mean, we know Irving is a company man, or was anyway. So it would make sense if he had more of a position than just being micro data processing.
Yeah. And he was working, he was working for Lumen in a non-severed position before, wasn't he?
Yeah, think so. Yeah.
Somebody had said, and I can't remember what it was, but something made them feel like he might have been in a position similar to Milchick's.
All right, yeah.
At one point, which would be weird, but but yeah, there's also something that I find very fascinating that I keep going back to in my head, and it's something he said to Dylan in season 1. He said that they were talking about Dylan was ragging on him for falling asleep, And he said, I can't help that I was hired older than you, which was just a weird way of saying that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It made it almost sounds like that's not actually Irving.
Yes.
No?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. Well,
But
that
I
would
don't
be
know if
interesting.
I don't know if that's like how the innies kind of see
Think,
them, like as
yeah.
inhabiting somebody's body. So that could be it too. I don't know.
Mm.
Um, like they don't necessarily think of themselves as the ages that they are. Or
Yes.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
it would be weird because you don't have any memories, so you must feel like, but you, they must have knowledge. They just don't have memories. So they have
Yeah,
knowledge of someone their age would have, but not memories, which it would be a really weird emotional age. It's not.
hmm
You don't have experience to. You may instinctively feel things and do things and react to things a certain way because you have experience, but you don't know you have that experience. So
yes,
it's really difficult to understand how the innies see themselves.
yeah,
That's really it's weird.
yeah, it is. Um, Now I want to talk about Dylan's
Yeah,
storyline
that's
because
what I was just going to ask.
I thought it was brilliant.
I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think the guy that was interviewing Dylan was obviously cast as someone who looked exactly like Dylan? And they really
Yeah.
drove that home with the screenshot.
I I have no idea. I can't wrap my head around it. Like when I
No.
saw the trailer, I actually thought it was some trippy thing where he was like seeing an older version of himself.
Yes. Yeah.
Um yeah, I what's your take on it?
I don't know. That's exactly. I was like, why? I think because so I heard someone else say, "Oh, was it deliberate?" Everything in Severance is deliberate, but I've no idea why. I don't know what it's saying. Um, Other than this could be a life that Dylan lived, or is it possibly something to do with this idea of cloning? That there are people who are almost you, but not quite you. I don't mean the literal, like this guy was a clone, but just to drive home that point.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was really interesting when he asked him about, okay, how long have you loved doors? And he said, since I was 5. And he said, what's your favorite door? Pocket door. And he said, yeah, because when you're not needed, you can just be tucked away, which is what an innie is.
Right.
So I was like, oh, that's really interesting, but I don't know why.
Yeah.
They're making a point, but I don't know what the reason is.
Yeah. I can't make sense out of it, but I feel like we'll understand it eventually.
Yes.
But yeah, I couldn't make sense of it. I thought it was so brilliant that like because Dylan is so, almost kind of he has this like playful arrogance
Yeah.
about him. And you see him and like he thinks his Audi's doing muscle shows and he's like he's out there banging MILFs as he put it. Um and he lives on a riverboat. He lives on a riverboat, he does muscle shows, and he bangs MILFs. I can't remember if he had any other ideas
No,
about
I
what
don't remember.
but so it was really interesting to see him just so kind of awkward and like very low confidence.
Yeah. I think the sort of overriding feel I got is his importance in providing for his family, because
Yeah.
that's the first thing he says. What am I going to tell my wife? And then when he is in the interview, he says, "What's the benefits?" And the guy says, "Yeah, after joking about the coffee, he's like, yeah, you get healthcare for you and your family." And he's like, "Good, that's fine." So obviously that's his big pressure that's on his shoulders, that he is the he's the man and he has to provide for his family. And that's why he is willing to be severed, is that it's so important for him in his image of himself as a man is to provide for his family, that he's going to go to that extent. What the bit where he's on the phone with Gretchen and he says, "Do we need more baby wipes?" And she's like, "No, I don't think so." And he says, "Oh, I'm going to get some anyway." I was just like, what? Why is that? You know, he's not just going to go home. He obviously wants a purpose to do something, but I don't know if there was more significance to it than that.
Yeah, I was wondering about that too. I thought it was odd.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to I hope we'll actually see Merritt Weaver soon.
Yes.
I absolutely love her.
Yeah.
She was killed off The Walking Dead way too soon. I was very pissed about it.
Very much so. So sad about that.
Yeah. I love her. I think she's fantastic. And I'm really excited that she's gonna be in the show. And I'm excited that she's his wife, because that means that hopefully she'll be around a while.
Yeah. I'm just excited to see more of Dylan as outie, because we basically knew nothing about him in season 1. So if we're going to spend time with him at home, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. I have a feeling that things might get ugly between Dylan and the other refiners this season.
Yeah.
Because I think they're going to use his family to pit him against the others.
Manipulate him.
Yeah.
The whole meeting your family, the meeting room, but keep it a secret from everybody else. That's going to be really interesting what they're going to do there. Is it really going to be his family, or is it going to be a looming fake family?
Well, they gave him his wife's real name, which was interesting, because I thought I had assumed they just made that up.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I feel like they might actually give him his real family. And he's like, if he leaves this position, if he can't be in any anymore, like if he leaves this position, he's never going to see them again. Any Dylan is never going to see them again.
Yeah, that's true.
And they think of leaving the company, as death, because that's all they know. So that's like death to them.
Yeah. I can totally see that he would then become really determined, because he would start to gain something by being in any. He would gain these feelings of having children and a wife that love him, and he does not want to give that up, and would then start to do anything to keep that going.
Yeah.
That's clever.
And with the others, causing trouble at work, I think that might affect his family privileges. And I think it's going to, I have a feeling there's going to be a major conflict between him and the others this season. Basically just with Milchick pulling the strings, using his family to pit him against them. What do you think about, let me ask you, I mean, this is such a random thing, and I don't think it means anything. But one thing I found really interesting is that when Cobel says to Helena, "You don't value me, you fear me." What's interesting is in the trailer, they changed that. It was, she said in the trailer, "You don't value them, you fear them."
Ooh.
Yeah. Why do you think they did that in the trailer?
It's interesting, because that puts it on the innies as being the powerful, or the outies, whichever she's talking about, or meant to be talking about. Maybe they want to hide the fact that Cobel has power. The fact she says, "You fear me," indicates she can do something that, I don't know what, but whatever her power is, whatever her knowledge or whatever it is that she has over them, maybe that they didn't want that to be obvious in the trailer.
That's what I'm thinking, but I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm kind of surprised that they thought that that would be that big of a deal to include.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that's true. Yeah.
So I'm curious about what they
Mm.
what they were thinking when they did that.
Mm.
But it's like, let me tell you, after we did an episode analyzing the From season 3 trailer before
Mhm.
the season started, and man, they don't miss a thing. Like the shit that they do in the trailers to throw you off is so crazy. Like,
Yeah.
because I kept saying, when everybody was trying to figure out who died in the barn, I was like, just look for whoever's wearing black pants. And she wasn't wearing black pants.
No.
They color corrected it in the trailer.
Yeah, that is something. I've seen trailers for things like in Bridgerton, they played something backwards.
Oh,
And I've
wow.
seen them do that on Walking Dead as well. They played a moment backwards, so it gives a completely different meaning to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so interesting. And with the pants, like you could barely see them. You could only see a sliver under the sheet of black pants, of what looked like black pants. And it was just them color correcting. Oh, my favorite of all time was The Walking Dead season 4. You're losing the war.
Oh yeah. It was about his beard. That was a good one.
Even those of you who follow The Walking Dead, you probably, unless you cover the show, you probably don't remember this, but in the season 4 trailer, there was a really dramatic scene of Michonne saying to Rick, "You're losing the war," really dramatically.
Mhm.
And what was actually happening in the show is she had gone out looking for the governor, and she had come back with some things for with some little gifts for Rick and Carl, and she gave him a razor, and she's like, "Your face is losing the war."
Don't trust trailers. What we're saying. Trust nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Now, have you read the Lexington letter at all?
No, I have not. No.
Do you know what it is?
No.
The Lexington letter it was written by Ben Stiller. It's super interesting. Do you have an Apple device?
No, I don't. I have Android.
Man. It was available before, but in more places. But right now, it's only available on Apple devices for some reason. But we are going to cover the entire thing in our Lumen deep dive. So I'll have to send it to you. But
Yes.
I'll send you a link to, you can watch the there's a YouTuber who basically showed the whole thing and read it on screen. It's like a 43-page booklet. It's part of it is the Lexington letter, and the other part is the MDR employee orientation guide.
All right. Okay.
Which is, and both are fascinating. And one thing that and the main character of the Lexington letter is Peggy. Her name is Peggy Kincaid, and she's writing to somebody at a newspaper it's like the Toledo Star or something like that, about, like, she found a way to communicate with her innie. And she was saying that like she came out from work one day and her hair was wet, and she didn't, like, they told her that she had a mishap with a water cooler, or changing a water cooler, like they told Mark. So it's interesting. So this pineapple bobbing is clearly something that they've already been doing
Yes.
for a while. But what? Let me see. Let me just check what else we've got here.
Do you think that what Mark is doing in Cold Harbor is he is refining the personality of Gemma Miss Casey to make her more Gemma?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
How about you?
That makes sense. Yeah. That when he's looking at the numbers and when he gets that bad feeling, the bad feeling is that doesn't fit with her. And so he removes it, and that takes away all these traits, personality traits that are not her.
The other interesting thing is that they only finish 1 out of 5 files before they expire.
Yeah.
So, like, what's happening? Are bodies expiring?
That's what I was assuming, that they can only keep them alive so long.
Yeah.
And then, the body dies, and so there's no point in doing their personality anymore.
Yeah. You know, it's one of the things that made me think that Miss Casey is actually Gemma. Just going back to that for a second, is the fact that, like, when he said her body was burned, I wasn't thinking cremation. For some reason, I thought I was thinking that they were talking about her body was burned in the accident.
Yeah.
And that would be an easy way for them to switch out bodies.
Absolutely, yeah.
And he identified her, but it could have been like them just putting her wedding ring on.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
On another person's finger or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it could be, I mean, hell, they could have even recreated a birthmark or something, you know?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Or a tattoo, or
Yeah.
An
Exactly.
approximation of her, not necessarily her.
Yeah.
Because obviously, if this was all planned, if they had planned to take her, then they could have had all this preparation ready. And that the car accident was not an accident, and it was deliberate.
Yeah. And I'm thinking that either it was deliberate or it was a really big fuck up, and it was something, the accident was caused by somebody very important at Lumen.
Yeah.
And it's something that they could go to prison for.
Maybe that's Cobel's, like, maybe she caused the accident.
Oh my God! That's brilliant!
That's why we see her car in the water. She caused the accident.
That is brilliant. How have I never thought about that? Oh my God. Okay, I'm sticking with that now.
Yeah. And that's why she's so invested in it.
Oh my God.
Uniting them because she killed her.
That would make so much sense. Oh my God. I need to go back. Yeah. Oh my God, it would explain so much. I need to go back and see, like, if she ever complains about, you know, like, her back hurting or something, or like her neck hurting or something.
Yeah.
You know?
But I'm thinking, even, you know, the fact that he's confronting her and saying, do you know anything about Gemma? While she's in the car, and she screams and tears off, and how much we've seen her driving. Because, you know, the whole thing at the end of season 1, she's tearing through the streets in their car.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, that's so
that just
brilliant.
Came to me. I hadn't thought that before that second either. So
oh my God, that is so brilliant. I cannot wait to talk to Jazzy about this. I'm so excited. She's gonna freak out. I have to watch the entire show again now from the beginning.
Yeah. That's the problem, isn't it? When you get a new idea, you've got to go, I need to go check.
Oh my God. My husband's going to come home from work and see me watching Severance from the beginning again. And he's going to stage an intervention.
Yeah.
Like he's so sick of Severance always being on in the house. Like, how many times do you need to rewatch this, Kelly? Well, I just learned something new, so I have to rewatch the entire, because it's that kind of show, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
You find out something new or you have a new theory, and then you have to go back and watch everything.
To see if
Oh my
anything
God.
disproves it for a start.
Okay, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
I want to get your take on this. Okay, I don't think anybody can make sense of why the cars are the way they are there.
No.
Um, but what do you think? Uh, what do you think about the climate?
Yeah. I I wonder, how much of it is a set in this. I just started watching Paradise on Hulu. I don't know if you've heard about that one with Sterling Brown.
No, I haven't.
Oh, well, I don't want to spoil it for anybody watching this, but it has a science fiction edge to it. I'll just say that.
Okay.
And it's connects in that kind of way to Severance, in the sense of a company who's doing something. And so it's making me think more about Severance, and that, everything looks like a sort of gated community type thing, even though some of the areas look poorer than others.
Yeah.
It's also, when you see the shot overhead, and the houses on each street are in like a cul-de-sac, but it was really struck me in this episode when we saw Irving coming out of his, and how lit up the sign was for his area, whatever it's called, his street or his little area. So it feels like it's all built for people, rather than, it was an organic city. So
Yeah.
part of me does think, is the whole town somehow part of Lumen? But then, you have these, we have like the company that Dylan went to, and obviously it's very anti-Lumen. But I don't, it's weird because it didn't look like it was snowy where Dylan was for the job interview, did it?
Ooh, I didn't even pay attention to that. I have to go back and
I'm trying to
and
think,
look
the
at that.
shot of him pulling up and the great doors, I don't think there was any snow on the ground there.
Huh. Well, I read that Dan Erickson is from the Pacific Northwest.
Right.
So that would explain like the mountains and how, but somebody pointed out that in the Lumen claymation video,
Mm-hmm.
that the animal that was drinking from the water out front was a
Uh-huh.
reindeer.
Oh.
And it made me think, like, are they in some kind of like permanently Arctic setting?
Yeah. Are they in like a
Mhm.
snow globe? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have had thoughts that they're in some kind of parallel universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that like the United States is still as it always was, and that
Mhm.
here PE, whatever that, I don't know if that's like province of Egan or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Kier and what's the other Gans? It's the other one that they keep mentioning. Um, I feel like they could be in some parallel universe.
Mm.
But the lighting is
Yeah.
really fascinating. Like everything's dark.
Yeah. Like the scene at the diner, I think, and the scene outside Dylan's interview, they were the only scenes that were daylight. Everything else was darkness.
Yeah.
And those were scenes where people were connecting with the outside world.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I'm not sure what that means in terms of literalness, or if that's just a metaphor, that, the light of the outside world, and when they're anything connected to the lumen, it's dark. But it could be literally something as well. I don't know.
Well, like the interior shots are all like they never turn on bright lights in their
No,
houses.
no.
they're always really dark. But what was super interesting, what was really noticeable to me, is that when it showed in season 1, when it showed Irving taking his dog back home, you know, they showed him sitting on a park bench and, you know, with his dog reading, and then they showed him like taking him back to the apartment complex, and it was dark out by then, and there was not a single light on in the building. So I found that kind of interesting.
Something I noticed in this episode which caught my attention is when Devon says to Mark, "Have you already told them you're resigning?" And he said, "No, I was going to tell them tonight."
Yeah.
And that struck me as odd, because you would think he works during the day, he would tell them during the day. He would phone, you would phone them between. Why would he be automatically saying, "I'm going to tell them at night"? Which I thought was really...
Maybe he wanted to do it while he wasn't there.
Yeah.
Just in case they tried to like make things hard for his innie or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, so there wasn't any confusion, like, you know, his innie isn't like, "Why are you kicking me out?" You know?
I think we must see those replacements again, because they're quite well-known actors. And to get them in just to make that one appearance makes me think we'll see them again. And especially the repeated mention of 5X.
Yes.
Because, you know, the way he reacted to 5X, and Milchick was like, "Oh, look, I only had 48 hours to put this together." So obviously something really bad happened at 5X. Interested to know what.
I'm interested in the fact that the branch that we see, that we're familiar with, is branch 501.
Yeah.
So what the fuck is 5X?
Yes.
I mean, it starts with a 5, but it doesn't have two other numbers after it. It's just an X.
Yeah.
Is that like a clone branch?
Could be, maybe. Or maybe X stands for closed, you know, that was a failure. And it was
maybe.
like, and they're 501, they're the new one. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. That could be it. It could be like, you know, maybe they were, yeah, it could be just another branch in the 5s that shut down. You're right. And it was something else before.
Yeah.
That's quite possible. Okay, so apparently there are still some people, like, apparently there's still some debate on whether that's Helly or Helena on the MDR floor. I felt like the episode 1 kind of solved it. But where are you on that?
No, I'm still not sure. I think the fact that her outfit was the exact opposite colorway of the, I thought that is a big clue. And you know, I think it's possible that even though we see her get in the elevator, that they somehow can switch it off. You know, you don't... Other people like Milchick could go down in the elevator, but he won't be affected. Do you know what I mean? I think it's still possible. I'm not convinced, but I think I'm reserving judgment on that one until we get further into the episodes. I think it's a sound theory, but I'm not entirely sure. I wonder if it is outie Helena, if it's because she wants to experience the romance with Mark for herself. And so she would do it against, like, permission. You know, she doesn't have permission to do it, but she does it anyway or something, because she's obviously the active head of the company. You know, from all we see, she's not just a figurehead, and she's not just a lackey to her father. She seems to be running the joint.
Yeah, she really does.
She can do whatever she wants, almost.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I had assumed that. Okay, so during the hiatus, when after the trailer came out, I was convinced it was going to be Helena. Then after we saw the first episode, I was 100% on the Helly train.
Mhm.
Because what she told us, the story that she gave,
Mhm.
she obviously was lying about what she saw.
Yeah.
Um, I felt like that's not something that Helena would say, because I think seeing a gardener in the winter is weirder than seeing a gardener at night.
Yeah. Yes.
And, like, Helly didn't know what it was like outside or anything, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And Helena knows what the climate is like, and, um, but I feel I'm not 100% sure. If it is Helly, I'm not 100% sure that she's lying.
No.
Um, I think that she could have had her part of her memory wiped or replaced even.
Yes. Yeah. I could see that.
Um,
Yeah.
and there was the what's interesting about that is there was a scene, I think it was in the first episode maybe, where Mark was sitting at home and he was watching a nature documentary.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, "Huh, that's kind of interesting." I feel like that's kind of recycled from that a little bit.
Mm.
Um, but I had assumed that it was definitely Helly, because it showed them all going through the same process, and, like,
Mhm.
her, like, putting her key in or whatever the same way, and I
Yeah.
had assumed that that meant, "Oh, okay, that's definitely gotta be Helly then." But yeah, I guess some people are saying that they thought it confirmed that it was Helena. So, like, so
Yeah.
I don't I
Yeah.
I yeah, I don't know. Um, but, I've got some photos here from the next episode that I
Okay.
wanted to show. Um, First of all, we know that Bert's coming back to Lumen. You know how we know that?
How do we know that?
Because Bert's got a fever, and the
Oh.
only prescription is more cowbell. Um,
That's
so
my favorite actress. Love her.
sorry for the weird select area across
That's
the
okay.
photo. I don't know why that says that. Yeah, I just recently noticed that that was a cowbell she was holding, and so
Yeah.
yeah, that cracked me up. But she she looks dirty,
Yes.
and there was a shot in the trailer where there was dirt all down the halls, and it looks like she works with the goats, so I'm
Ah,
thinking maybe the goats get loose.
hence the bell. I get it. Yep.
Yes. I'm hoping that's the case, because, like, I want a spin-off of just the goats. Like,
Yes.
I love goats so much that I could just watch them all day. Like, I mean, one of my favorite scenes is where where Mark and Helly are walking down the hallways, and they hear that "meek." Like, oh my god, it's so precious. Um, but we've got some interesting photos from the next episode.
Oh.
We've got Milchick arriving at work, and I was thinking, like, oh, we've never seen Milchick getting to work
Yeah.
before, but I think the reason that they're going to focus on that is because is is Cobelvig back in her old office?
Oh, yes. He's clearly looking at someone. Yes.
Yeah, he's in his office and he doesn't look happy, and he's
Yeah.
looking at somebody. And he's standing in front of the door, so I think he might be walking on Cobelvig.
Yeah. With her feet on the desk.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Now this is interesting. Irving is wearing something that says hall pass.
Oh.
It's like a pin or something on his
Yeah.
jacket that says hall pass.
Oh.
Now, what I'm really curious about is, so the bobbing for pineapples is obviously them just, like, dunking them underwater as
Yeah.
punishment. I imagine that the Hall of Mirrors or whatever is them, like, just seeing really disturbing, fucked up images. But
Yes.
what is the hall pass gonna be about? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, that's interesting. why has he been given it or has he requested it? That's what I'm wondering. Is he assigned a duty that means he gets it, or is it any Irving trying to get more information on Bert, and so he can go to different departments?
Yeah, it could be. We also have a photo here, and I could not. Mark and Helly both have something clipped on them that looks like Irving's hall pass, but I think it says something different.
Oh,
and it's a different color.
Yes, it's lighter color.
Yeah, it's like a pale green, and I think Irving's is blue.
Blue, yeah.
And there's just like a light green. And I couldn't blow it up enough to see exactly what it says. So I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe they're going to check out the. Maybe we'll find out what the
Hall
of Mirrors is. I'm kind of freaked out. Like that was kind of freaky. What do you think about the fact that? I mean, did you feel like Irving, when they showed that in the claymation video, it looked like Irving looked like a rat?
Yeah. And there's the bit on the titles right at the end is that someone is turned into a baby, and I couldn't make out who that was.
Oh,
interesting. It's like there's a baby crawling in front of Mark, and I was like, but it looks like a grown human. And I'm like, is that Irving? I couldn't really tell. I need to watch the titles screen by screen, I think, because I think there's moments in that will maybe give us clues to I don't know about the claymation at all. I just I'm stuck on the building and the reflecting pool.
I'm sorry, my mind is somewhere else. You're talking about the opening credits with with the babies, the faceless babies, and then I think the one is supposed to be Kier.
It's supposed to be Kier, is it?
That's what I thought. Yeah, but maybe it is Irving, and maybe Irving is linked to my Ambrose theory. I just have a feeling that Ambrose is going to come into the picture somehow. Yeah. I think they did that for a reason. They mentioned that he was the black sheep of the Egan family for a reason.
And that it would make sense if there is a branch of the Egan family that is part of that is the root of the outside world's disdain, and that is someone who's come from Lumen and said, this is all bad.
Yeah, for sure. I am with the whole thing. Okay, something I want you to think about here, and I want everybody watching this to think about. So we know that there's something weird with the water.
Yeah.
And that's something that we'll talk about in our Lumen deep dive too. The MDR employee orientation guide instructs them to wash their hands, to make sure they're washing their hands like a ridiculous number of times during the day.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got the Lumen water tower, and we've got the shot of Helly being shoved underwater. And I'm wondering, with the accident and seeing what looks like Cobelvig's car in the lake, I wonder if maybe if they're controlling the water, I wonder if maybe there's something in whatever lake that Miss Casey, if Miss Casey died in a lake, if there's something in there that helps preserve bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that would make sense. Yeah. I was thinking it was more to do with the ice. The reason the reason the temperature is kept so low in the town is to preserve all the clones or whatever.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, that's a good thought. That's a
Yeah.
really good thought. Yeah, the other thing that made me think it might be like a permanently cold environment is we saw shots of like of Angelo and Gabby, the congressman and his wife, like taking their kids to the park when there was like all that snow on the
So,
ground.
yeah.
Like
Yes.
when I was a kid, I never went to the park when there was snow on the ground,
Yeah.
but it showed them like, so I thought that was weird, but if that's the only time they can go, I mean, if there's always snow on the ground, then
Yes,
they're gonna be
exactly.
going
Then
to the park.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But yeah, that's an interesting theory that it could have something to do with that. But yeah, I still wanna know what's up with the cars and the lighting. I'm
Yeah.
so perplexed. The thing with the cars really bugs me. So who was your MVP and your LVP for this episode?
Oh, this was hard one. I think my MVP is Devon for asking the questions, asking any questions, and
Yeah.
sticking to it. So I think or Persephone. What's that about?
Yeah.
Why is her
Seriously.
real name Persephone? I'm assuming that's her real name, and she only uses Devon because of reasons. I must go back and read more about the legend of Persephone to see if there's some clue there. But yeah, I definitely think it's Devon is the MVP. She's doing the most. And I think the LVP, I think I'm going to give it to Helena. Because she's far more powerful than I thought. I had just assumed as the daughter, and because we only found out in that last episode of season 1, and that she's going up and giving a speech, and I really thought she was just going to be a figurehead and just patted on the head and told by daddy, this is what you're going to do, and just she goes out and gives a speech, and then the rest of her time she's swilling champagne and partying or something. So to find out, no, she's powerful and she's behind all this, I was like, no, Helena,
no. What incentive are you going to give Devon?
I've got to. I'm not entirely sure. Something involving donuts, I think. I'm sick of hearing about waffles. I want them to have donuts.
Yes, I agree. I agree completely. I am also going with Devon. I think she's without a doubt the MVP of this of this episode. I am going to give her I'm going to give her, you know what? I'm going to give her it's not quite an incentive, but I'm going to give her a wellness session because she has a baby. She can do something like relaxing. Just go sit her, put the old wellness room together and just sit her down in there with the music and and the the calming atmosphere, and she just had a baby. I think she would enjoy that.
Yeah, I think so.
But the LVP, God, you know what? I'm gonna give the LVP to Rebecca for just being a weirdo.
Weirdest line to say, hey, Rickon, don't take it out on the baby. What?
And it was very it seemed very I don't know, it seemed very Luminy.
Yes, it did.
She's such a weirdo, but some of the things she says, like that line, don't.
Yeah.
And she didn't call her, she called her it.
It, yeah.
It just seemed very Luminy.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
But I love her back because she's such a weirdo. But
yes. Although, she might have changed her name by now. She might not be Rebecca.
Oh, Yeah, that's right. She said she was going to have to completely reinvent herself again now. Now, there's a theory actually going around that I guess toward the end of season 1, Rickon was wearing a lot more blue.
Ooh.
And like the person who I heard this theory from said that when he told Mark that he sounded like a sad old hamburger waiter, that sounded like something very Luminy to say.
Yeah.
Like it sounded like Lumen speak, and they have the theory that maybe Rickon has somehow gotten involved with Lumen, but I can't see that.
No. Maybe it's exactly what you're saying. If he's somehow connected to Ambrose, it's a residuals of a Lumen past rather than a Lumen present.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah, and especially like when he said that too, he was like, "What the hell was that?" You know, that was kind of his reaction to that. Where did that come from? Like, why did I say that? But yeah, that could be like Ambrose coming through. I don't know. I've got some wacky theories, but some of my wacky theories have been proven right before. So
it's the way the show works. I don't think anything's out of range.
Yeah, exactly. Did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about before?
No, I think that's covered everything. Everything I've written down. Yep, is
awesome.
Yeah, we've covered it all.
Well, I can't wait to talk about episode 3 with you and Jazzy and our viewers. It'll be fun.
That'd be great.
I'm really looking forward to this, especially because I want to know if I'm right about my theory that it was Audi Irving that came back or not. Yeah. Obviously, I'm sure it'll be clear in this episode. I can't imagine that he'd be trying to conceal that.
Well, I don't know if they can. They might drag everything out until later on in the season. Who knows?
Yeah, or he might try, but I don't know if he. You know what I was thinking today? What would be such a huge mindfuck if we found out that it was Helena all along?
Yeah,
just acting.
Yeah,
know? And
that would
and that she's got a secret plan to either bring down the company. Or her pretending to be her innie having an outburst was actually part of a grand scheme of becoming more powerful, and that we haven't, it's and that it'll make sense when her whole plan unfolds. But I thought I don't actually believe that to be the case, but I was just thinking today, like that would just be such a huge mindfuck.
Yeah. That would.
If it was revealed. I still want to know what's up with Milchick, because he's not normal.
No.
He's so robotic.
Yes, he's so exactly the word I used, robotic. And sort of like creepily even, even relation. So if he reacts to Cobell in a way, then that would be good, because we can see, oh look, he's got emotions.
Yeah.
That would be good.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't even really show. I mean, he showed personality during the music dance experience when he was dancing, but he didn't even really like his reaction to Dylan biting him. I thought was surprisingly subdued.
Subdued, yes. Everything he does is very one-toned in terms of emotion. So it would be interesting to see him lose it or something.
Yeah, for sure. Like have a full-on Cobelvig style temper tantrum.
That's what I was going to say, like Cobell.
Oh God, I live for her temper tantrums. They're the absolute best. I want to know how Patricia Arquette, like, if she does like a bunch of vocal warm-ups to I just
get into this screaming.
Like, I want to know about her method of achieving the perfect temper tantrum. How much does she practice them? Like, they're so brilliant.
And make sure she doesn't ruin her voice when she screams.
Yes, exactly. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and please swing by again. I'm apologizing for the late recording. Our goal is to usually have the episodes up by Monday, but like I said, I mean, we've just been hit really hard with sickness and with the fires and everything, and so it's been a lot. But I'm hoping that by next week we might be back on track. But please join us Friday afternoon, 5 o'clock Eastern time, for our after party, our Severance after party. You can call in, live chat, all that fun stuff. And also, if you haven't checked out our other coverage, we cover Yellow Jackets, which is coming back. Season 3 is coming back on February 14th. And that's what our channel started with. So check out the Antler Queens on wherever you listen to podcasts, or just check our channel for our coverage there, all of our Yellow Jackets coverage. We also cover From and the Daryl Dixon spinoff, which is still currently titled Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, which I'm really not happy about. Like, it pains me to even say the title. Oh my God. But we also cover that. And what am I missing?
From? No, you said From.
Yeah, I mentioned From. I think that's it, because Teacup has been Hysteria is currently on hiatus because we've been so overwhelmed with stuff. We are going to cover Welcome to Derry once that comes out, but we don't know when that's happening. But check out our coverage of our other shows, and join us on Friday afternoons. We'd love to talk live with you and get your thoughts. But for now, we are out of here, and praise Kier.